Hey folks, Jeff Thitoff here. It's the Jeff Thitoff Show. Quite the name, huh? I'm Tito, Jeff Thitoff. Follow me on Twitter @ThitHappens. Check out our new website, manswingsports.com. Lots of great content on there of all kinds. We're adding new shows, new talent all the time. Go check it out, manswingsports.com. Lots to talk about today. I'm going to talk to Scott Hamilton. He's a sports columnist for the Post Courier, which is down there in the Carolinas. They cover a lot of things down there. Talk to him about college football. Lots of stuff to talk about with college football. Also get some NFL talk, a little bit of NBA, and maybe baseball. I don't know. Let's get the baseball talk out of the way. Blue Jays, Dodgers in the World Series. Game 1's Friday. Okay, let's move on now to the NBA. NBA tips off tonight. Their start of their season on Tuesday, I should say, when I'm recording this. Houston's at OKC. The Lakers host Golden State. Oklahoma City is looking to become the first team to repeat as NBA champions since Golden State did it back in 2018. No team has even repeated as a conference champion since 2019 when Golden State did it. So the NBA season tipping off tonight. LeBron's out for the start of the season for the Lakers. Kevin Durant just turned 37 years old. Steph Curry is going to turn 38 in March. And how long will these guys be able to keep playing at this level? LeBron played 70 games last year, one of his best statistical seasons, and played about 35 minutes a game. Kevin Durant played more than 36 minutes a game, only played 62 games, though, still averaged 26.6 points. Steph Curry, he played in 70 games in the regular season, about 32, a little more than 32 minutes a game. He averaged 24.5 points. And I'm curious who you think would be able to go, like, will there be another group of superstars like this once these guys, we always wonder about that. You know, we thought about it when way back when Bird and Magic left and Jordan was there to kind of carry the mantle. And there were a lot of superstars during that time too. And now, though, with these guys, I mean, LeBron's been doing this for so long now, in his 23rd season now coming up. And Durant, for such a long career, one of the best scorers of all time. Curry, you know, he changed the game with his range, how he shoots, and the way everyone now shoots three-pointers. And I wonder if you'll take time out of if you'll make it appointment watching TV. I know there's a lot of NBA games on TV. You know, there's a ton of games on TV you can watch. Will you make it a point to watch these guys at some point this season? Knowing that, like, I mean, look, I don't think it's Durant's last season or Curry's, but still, it might be LeBron's. We don't know that either. But you get a chance to watch all-time greats near the end of their careers. I know sometimes people stick around too long, and they look like a shell. Dwayne Wade's a perfect example. Dwayne Wade was somebody who, at the end of his career, was nothing like he was in his prime. Shaq was the same way. Penny Hardaway, a guy who I used to love watching for Orlando. He was you see these guys that hang on. Derrick Rose, when it's clear that it's gone, that their time as being like an elite player is over. When I was younger, I used to think, that's sad. I hate seeing that. I don't want to see get out while you're still on top. You know, leave after winning your ring or whatever. But as I've gotten older now, I kind of like the fact I want them to stay as long as they can, because you never know when you're going to see greatness. You never know when you might see that one more time when they turn back the clock. Now, these guys are nowhere near that part where, like, it's near the end of their career, or like at the end of their careers, and they're just looking for one more big game or whatnot. But I don't mind guys sticking around now for as long as they can. Durant, by the way, signed a 2-year, $90 million extension. He now, as of right now, has the most earnings in NBA history as far as like what's on his contract going forward and what he's earned so far. It's like just south of 600 million, I think, is what he's made in his career. LeBron will pass that obviously soon. So anyway, NBA season gets tipped off on Tuesday night. And I'm curious, are you a fan of dynasties or chaos in the NBA? Because we have, like I say, we haven't a repeat champion since those Golden State Warriors teams. Those Golden State Cleveland series were so much fun to watch. The Boston and the Lakers series from the 80s, those were so much fun to watch. And so I wonder if you are more of a fan of, are you a fan of chaos where it changes all the time? Or do you want a dynasty like OKC? OKC is fun to watch. They're young, they're fundamental, they're talented. OKC is fun to watch. I love watching Victor Wembanyama. I hope he stays healthy this year. I want to see what the Spurs can do. Obviously, Pop no longer the head coach there, but they've got a lot of young talent. We'll see what that can do. But anyway, NBA gets started tonight. It's a long season, 82 games long, but it tips off here on Tuesday. I keep saying tips off on Tuesday. All right, let's talk college football. And I want to get into this thing about the coaching buyouts and coaches being fired and whatnot. because we just had Billy Napier for Florida, and I'll talk to Scott Hamilton about this shortly. He just got fired, though, by Florida, and he gets owed a chunk of money. I think it's $21 million, half of which is due within 30 days, and then the rest of the money gets paid out annually over the next 3 years. Wisconsin, we know, was under a lot of turmoil with Luke Fickell. Their AD came out. He wrote a letter to Badgers fans. His name is Chris McIntosh. And the Badgers, by the way, they play at Eugene, Oregon this week. The number 6 Ducks, it could be an ugly game there for Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been shut out the last 2 games at home. They got shut out by Iowa 37-0, and that's an amazing point total for Iowa. 34-0 by Ohio State. And that's the first time that's happened, I think, since 1980, where they've been shut out in consecutive home shutout losses. It was their first home shutout losses since 1980. Anyway, here's the letter that McIntosh wrote. Coach Fickell sees the potential in what this team can be, as do I, and he shares the same disappointment and frustration. Our student athletes continue to stand and fight with character and pride as they battle through this moment of adversity, and they deserve all of our support. In this new era of college athletics, the clear reality is that high expectations must be matched with an equal level of support. The results of this elevated support may not be immediate. We are confident the direction will be positive and long-term. A vote of confidence. Sometimes that's an awful thing, but Fickell gets a vote of confidence there. I still think if they get blown out of the water by Oregon, they have a bye week, then you could see the change come. Florida State, Mike Norvell, same thing. And his AD, Michael Alford, said, we're not going to make any decisions at the end of the season, meaning Norvell's probably safe for now, but likely will be gone at the end of the season. Auburn, by the way, their head coach. And this was interesting. So Auburn's got Hugh Freeze as their head coach, and so you saw Florida State and Wisconsin give votes of confidence to their head coaches. Auburn's head coach, Hugh Freeze, came out and said, I would like to have a vote of confidence. He said it'd be huge. That would make everyone feel a lot better for sure. I haven't talked to John, and had to talk to the athletic director about that. John Cohen, by the way, is the athletic director. I haven't talked to John. I'm going to say John's been so supportive ever since, obviously, my hire. They have a job to do. Certainly has people he has to answer to. I know how close we are. I know I can get this fixed. College football, and I'm going to get into this more with Scott Hamilton coming up shortly, though. There's got to be a change somewhere because this is so much. But Florida, by the way, Florida's going to be paying 3 head coaches again for the second time in 7 years now, once they hire the new head coach to replace Billy Napier. But they're going to be paying 3 head coaches. These buyouts, I don't know if somebody's be the first one to step up and say, we're not going to do huge buyouts like this anymore, or what what's going to change in that. But the amount of money to buy these guys out is just ridiculous. And so, by the way, Steve Spurrier came out for Florida, the former Florida coach, and said that he thinks that Lane Kiffin and Eli Drinkwitz, Kiffin Ole Miss, Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri, would be good fits for Florida. He said, I firmly think that he's talking about Kiffin is a very good coach. There's no question about that. I like him. I like Eli Drinkwitz. I like a lot of guys out there that are proven winners. So let's do this now. Let's bring in Scott Hamilton from the Post and Courier. That's down there in the Carolinas. He's a sports columnist for them. We'll get him on here now to talk more about college football and talk about the ACC quite a bit and those teams down south that he covers. All right, folks, now we're joined by Scott Hamilton. He is with the Post and Courier covering the Carolinas, sports columnist down there. Scott, I know you've got your pulse on the ACC and actually college football over the country, I guess. What's the fact that Florida got rid of Billy Napier? Were you surprised by that?
Yes and no. I mean, the writing's been on the wall for quite some time. I mean, he was, of course, almost fired last year, and they had that really good second half surge, and they decided to give him another shot, which I think was prudent. He had not lost the team, but they didn't see enough improvement to this point, and they said, you know what, we're just going to pull the trigger. We're going to get this thing over with. And a big part of it, Tito, was that he wouldn't give up play calling. That was something that was understood when they gave him that 11th hour reprieve last year, that you've got to bring in a play caller.
Right.
And he talked to a couple of guys, the conversations fell through, and he didn't really go after anybody else. He kind of kept just doing it. And at the end of the day, they said, okay, we've had enough. And it's a bye week, and he was fired after a win.
Right.
They beat Mississippi State, but they shouldn't have beat Mississippi State. If you watch that game, Mississippi State shot itself in the foot multiple times. I just think this is where we are, man. I mean, giving a guy, he's got to give him time. You got to give him 4 years. You got to give him 3 years. You got to give him 5. No, No. Kurt Cignetti has proven that that's antiquated thinking. You got to win now. And a place like Florida still professes or considers itself to be an elite program. And
Right.
we could break down what exactly defines an elite program in 2025 if you want, but he had to go. He had to go. And now any name is possible now. Anybody could be the next head coach of Florida. Anybody.
Well, that's what's interesting is that, I know you say like they've got to have the, by the way, I believe it was Jimbo Fisher was the last coach to get fired after a conference win, was the last one that happened to, but when he was at A&M. But when you look at with these huge buyouts now that are happening, and I wonder if sometimes if that is going forward, ever give somebody pause, because Fisher obviously got a ton of money. And you've got James Franklin getting more money to not coach Penn State than Joe Paterno got in his entire career to coach Penn State. He gets, in the buyout, he gets that. And there's some offset language there. I know there's no offset language in Billy Napier's deal. But as I'm looking at this, Fickell is due to a huge buyout in Wisconsin. Can Wisconsin afford a huge buyout? Florida's going to be paying 3 coaches again when they hire this new one. That's the second time in 7 years they have 3 coaches they are paying at the same time to have one guy coach the team. And do you think these, like the buyouts thing, it doesn't feel like it can go backwards? Like you can't start saying, okay, we're not going to offer a big buyout anymore because of you don't get burned by this after Fisher and after Franklin and those guys. Do you think that's going to change at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they do run this backwards. I mean, not for the guys who have the buyouts, but
right.
they see these coaches and these programs that are handcuffed by these ludicrous deals. And a lot of these deals came, what was it, back in 2021, when we had all those dominoes fall and we had Lincoln Riley go to Southern Cal and we had Brian Kelly go to Notre Dame, and people were just freaking out wanting to keep their coach. So they were given these ludicrous extensions. Well, guess what? Those extensions are biting them in the rear end now. I'll give you a really good example, man. Mark Stoops at Kentucky. They want to send that guy packing as soon as possible. He's not even happy there. Everybody needs to get rid of that.
He could have the A&M job if he wanted it, right?
No, he had the A&M job.
Okay, he had it.
But they didn't want him. The fans pulled it.
That's what it was. Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
And went off on him. And then how do you run that back? I mean, he lost the fan base by doing that. We've seen how that works out. I think about Scott Satterfield at Louisville. Scott Satterfield, a little context. Scott Satterfield had a really good start to his tenure at Louisville. And I know that. He's a great guy. But he also had a dalliance with South Carolina when they hired Will Muschamp. Or no, it was when they hired Shane Beamer.
Okay.
And it got public. It went out that he was talking to South Carolina. That didn't suit the folks in Louisville too well, and everything was bad after that. Now, he's gone on to Cincinnati, and he's having a good year, but
sure,
isn't that kind of a lateral move when you think about it? I mean,
it is. Yeah.
I mean, you don't do that. I mean, if anything, he made that move before travel became just absolutely stupid in the ACC. I mean, it was hard enough in the Big 12, but I mean, now it's, stupid in the ACC. He made that move. You don't do that if you don't burn your fan base and burn your boosters. But as far as to your earlier point, back to the buyouts, I don't see how contracts going forward are going to have these ridiculous buyouts. As a matter of fact, I think coaching salaries in general are going to roll back because of the added cost of revenue sharing and all that. I think that something's going to have to give, and it's going to be the coaches' salaries.
It's funny, when baseball free agents started back in the 70s, and there were some owners totally against free agency and said because there's no salary cap. They did say at the time salary caps weren't a thing back then, but they said the owners won't be able to help themselves, and they're going to spend. And Steinbrenner did, and I think it was what Gene Autry with the Angels did back then. And so it's almost the same thing now, where these guys they want the coach so badly, and they want the top coach. They want them so badly that they are going to pay a lot, and so. That's the part that I wonder. I know I'm with you. I think it should go back, and you can put it under the umbrella of under the guise of like, you know what, we can't pay you that much because we want to put a good team on the field for you. But like I'm looking now at the Florida job and the Penn State job. Which one do you think is a better job?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be inherently biased considering what part of the country I live in. I'm going to say I think the Florida job is a better job, but I think from a competitive standpoint, it's probably Big Ten. I
Yeah.
mean, when you look at an easier path to the playoff and the depth of the conference, I mean, of course, you have Ohio State, which is an absolute monster.
Mhm.
But beyond that, what have you got as to where you could argue that the SEC? I mean, I look at the SEC right now. There's 7 teams that could legitimately make the college football playoff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And then from a recruiting standpoint, you're already in the South. Florida is loaded with talent. You'll be able to keep a lot of that home. I think if I'm looking like for the easiest route professionally, I'm going to Penn State. But if I want a
Okay.
better job, it's Florida. Maybe that's a long-winded way of saying that.
When you look at the fact that, what Florida, the issues they had last couple of years, with he barely hung on for Napier, barely held onto his job last year. And do you think the Florida fan base, because I don't see him going with an up and coming coach. I think they're going to have to go unless they get the kid down there at South Florida. Unless they get someone like him, Alex Golish, Ohio State guy too, by the way. Unless they get Golish, then I think they're going to go for an established Power 4 coach. And the first name that comes to mind for me is James Franklin. Would the Florida fan base embrace James Franklin?
No,
they wouldn't.
No, they want Lane Kiffin.
Okay,
they're all about Kiffin, man.
You think it's a chance that it happens?
Oh, I think. Oh yeah, I think there's a chance anything happens in this world. I mean, if you back up enough of the money, anything can happen, and they would give him all of the resources in the world. He seems like the spiritual, successor to Steve Spurrier in so many ways.
Yeah,
it would make just so much sense. But Kiffin's at a point in his life, and I watched the documentary, and I talked to some people who helped make the documentary, and they say it's all legitimate. He seems like he's just really good where he's at. And when you think about it, Tito, there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, personally, he's happy in Oxford.
Sure.
But he's also on his way to becoming the greatest coach in school history.
Who's the greatest coach right now? I can't think who it would be.
Vaught.
Okay.
Vaught.
Yep.
Vaught.
Okay.
Vaught's the greatest coach there. I mean, he's really cooking in Oxford, but he's got such a mercurial nature and restless leg syndrome and all that, man. I mean, it's about time for him to pick up and go. Traditionally, if he's truly changed, I think we'll find out if he decides to stay in Ole Miss. Here's the thing, though. Anybody's on the table for this. Anybody is a candidate for this, because I'm going to make this argument to you, and I would love to explore it with you. What are the good jobs now? Every job's a good job when you think about it now, because the portal opens up so many things. NIL opens up so many things. I mean, Kurt Cignetti, a Pennsylvania native, basically took himself out of the running to be the head coach at Penn State. He took himself out of the running to be the head coach at Penn State, to stay at Indiana. And I know it's a lot of money.
Right.
But it's more than the money. I mean, it's having all the other things to succeed. You don't just stay somewhere because they give you a crap load of money. I mean, it's Penn State, but it's Penn State that we think of from 1987. It's Penn State from the 70s, pre-Sandusky, all that awfulness. Take that out of the equation. And he's staying at Indiana. Clark Lee, I truly believe, will never leave Vanderbilt. Brent Key will never leave Georgia Tech, because they've cracked the code on how to use all these things that we said was going to kill college sports, the transfer portal, NIL. No, it's created the most parity we've ever seen in a sport that has been inherently unfair since it was born. And I think it's a beautiful thing, dude.
Yeah, I think so too. You're right. It is still, I mean, I know the talk was all this will bring parity. This will bring parity. I just think I don't know if parity is what I would say it's going to force people to be smarter. It's going to force you to be a lot smarter about how you spend your money, with the kids you bring in the transfer portal, because we've seen schools strike out big time in the transfer portal, and it costs them. And if you fire a coach and make a bad hire, it's going to set your program back. It could set you back 3 or 4 years. Now it's going to set it back a year or two, depending on how you do in the transfer portal. You can more quickly rebuild. But it blows my mind to think, Scott, that we're sitting here talking about, Georgia Tech, Indiana, and Vanderbilt all could be playoff teams this year.
All of them. I had Georgia Tech second on my pre-ACC preseason ballot. Second.
Well, you're one of the few that had that, yeah.
I did. And if nobody believes me, call me up at Scott Hamilton PC on X, Twitter. I'll show you. And I had Clemson first, making that what
Okay,
you will.
Yeah, let's be honest.
but to your point, though, you're talking about being smarter. If you were to take LSU's roster and you were to take Vanderbilt's roster and you set them side by side and you redact the names of the teams and you say, okay, I'm going to build my own roster from these guys. 99.9% of the players are going to come from the LSU roster.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
But the team, Vanderbilt, is better. We saw that on the field. That is a real thing. That happened because they know who they are, they know what they are, and they're smart about going about getting players. It's all about culture. That's a word we throw around a lot, but it's true, man. It's true. Culture is a real thing. And just because a guy's a 5-star doesn't mean he's the best fit for you. That cake don't always bake.
Right.
And so you might not have all the money to go get all the 5 stars, but you can sit there and build your roster prudently instead of just going ahead and succumbing as teams did in the past. You can go out and say, okay, this is our most serious gap. We've got to go get a left guard. Right. Who's the best left guard we can get who isn't a total a-hole who will blend in well with our team? And sure. That's what we're seeing in Indiana. That's what we're seeing in Nashville. That's what we're seeing in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And it's just a new age, man. And I think it's incredibly exciting. I love it. I mean, did you ever think we would be in a world, not only with Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech being playoff contenders, but where the greatest pipeline of talent might be New Mexico State?
That's true. Yes, you're right. You're right. Never. Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, Scott Hamilton joins us here. He's sports columnist with the Post and Courier, serving the Carolinas. And do you think that out of North Carolina and LSU, do you think both of them have new football coaches next year, one of them or none of them?
Damn. That's a great question. I think maybe with Belichick, we've reached the stubborn part of it. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago when I came out of Chapel Hill, I was at that game against Clemson.
Yeah.
And we were literally counting fans in the third quarter. Like, there were 3 of us. And I said, I'll take this section. You take that. And we could count people. It was so empty. But I think he's reached a point now where he's going to say, okay, we're going to show them year 2. We built something, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
LSU, only way LSU makes a change after this season, two things. The wheels have to completely fall off, which I don't think will happen. I don't think will happen. LSU's still a pretty daggone good football team.
Sure.
But and don't laugh at me, but I actually had a colleague of mine say this on another show this morning. If Nick Saban were to throw a flyer out there that he was interested in coming out of retirement, then I think we would see something happen. Or if Brian Kelly goes to Penn State.
See, that's the thing. I wonder if it's good for Brian Kelly to get fired. Like, because I don't know if I doubt Florida be in play, but yeah, Penn State could be in play for Brian Kelly. You don't
Luke take a fired coach, man.
You're right. Maybe it's one of those things like Costanza did, where he just runs around the parking lot with dragging the trophy around, hoping to get fired or spilling mustard. I fear no retribution. Right? Yeah. Where it's one of those mutual decision kind of things, like they talk about. But I think Fickle up in Wisconsin, I think that it'd be good for him to get fired at this point. It's just painful watching it.
Well, Fickle, here's what happened with Fickle, and I would like your input on this. I mean, you're way closer to the situation than me. He comes in and he tries to reinvent basically the wheel by reinventing Wisconsin football.
Yep.
And he decides to be an air raid team, and he gets an air raid offensive coordinator, and he stocks the roster with air raid players, and it doesn't work. So he gets rid of the air raid offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, but he's still got a lot of the air raid players, and that's like square peg into round hole or whatever. I mean, that seems to be my thinking, and he's trying to undo the mess he did when he first got there. He's still untying that knot.
It's like when Michigan hired Rich Rod, and Rich Rod came in with the spread offense and didn't work. It went against everything Michigan's ever done. And it was you had to completely change. Now it's easier to change on the fly now with the transfer portal, but still, if you do something that's going against what the identity of the team has known for you, like Kirk Ferentz, love him or hate him, has not changed the philosophy at Iowa at all. He has stuck with that the entire time. He does, and I think the fans are okay with that. I think the fans are happy with Kirk Ferentz and what he's done overall over time. They have realistic expectations. Wisconsin, though, when he comes in and does that, Fickell does that, it turns off the fan base. And even if it doesn't work, so they can now say, well, this is why we suck. It couldn't be something else. But, they're going to put it on the fact that Fickell tried to change everything. That'll be the reason, the narrative why Fickell's not successful there. It could be other reasons, too. The fact they've had starting quarterback get hurt the last 3 years in a row and had to make changes on the fly with that. I think they were down their third string quarterback or maybe the fourth string against Ohio State. And their the best offensive play they had against Ohio State was the unplanned for fake punt that went 19 yards. Like, that's their best offensive play the entire day. And so, he did the same thing Rich Rod did. He did the same thing. Was it Mike Riley at Nebraska that came in and tried to change that right away too?
Well, Harbaugh did it too. Harbaugh did it too. Harbaugh had to reinvent himself, if you recall, because he wanted to be up-tempo spread, and it wasn't until they called him into the principal's office, cut his salary, and said, you got to be different. He said, we're going to go back to being a power football team. And then they come back the next year, and they look totally different with their philosophy. And look what happened. Boom, they turned it around, started beating Ohio State, winning national title. Well, and cheating. Don't forget the cheating.
Wait, the cheating part. Yeah, I was going to say, you got to make sure you put that in there also. Yes, alleged cheating and then cert cheating, but it was, whatever you want to call it. Scott Hamilton joins us here at the Post and Courier down there serving the Carolina, sports columnist for them. I'll get you out here on this one. Is Miami of Florida as good as they looked early this year, or were they exposed in their last game?
I think they're as good as they looked, but, and this is in my column for postandcourier.com tomorrow, they have to be perfect from here on out. They can still make the college football playoff. They're probably not going to make the ACC championship game. It's not going to happen unless they get a lot of help. It's going to be like weaving traffic, man, when you break down all the scenarios, because the league is so bloated, not everybody plays everybody.
Right.
Okay? So, and the tiebreakers now or whatever. But they've got to be perfect, and that's where the problem comes in, because if we've learned anything from the Mario Cristobal experience, is that he has some issues in some key moments as a head coach, and maybe he got it out of his system against Louisville. Okay. But I think that was more of a Carson Beck being a D-bag situation with the 4 interceptions and then throwing his tight end under the bus. Oh, he ran the wrong route. You don't do that.
No,
you don't do that if you're a leader, especially a guy getting a bag of what, 8 million, 9 million, 10, 5, whatever.
Right.
But to your question, this is a stacked roster, number 2 in the country 8 days ago, 5 days ago, 4 days ago. Yeah. And I was one of those people. I had them number 2 on my AP ballot. I've still got them. I think I've got them number 9 now. I think they're as good a threat to get into playoff and win the whole thing as anybody. But there are probably 20 teams you could say that about, 25. And go back 5 years, Tito, and it was basically 5 teams to make the playoff, 2 who could realistically win the national title. What a world.
Yeah, and you look at it now, Scott, with the way that all the conferences now are so huge, and there's a big luck of the draw with the schedule, a huge luck of the draw on that, to where you're going to see teams with 1 loss that played an easier conference schedule than a team with 2 losses, and you got to evaluate what's more. We're going to have a lot of 1 and 2 loss teams that we're looking at the end of the season. It's going to be difficult to decide which ones to leave out.
Well, and that's why it was so important that the Power 4 conferences now are in lockstep with the non-conference schedule for each. I just think that was a marvelous thing. And a lot of people around the SEC weren't too happy with that, the Kentuckys of the world, who want to schedule their way to a bowl game. Right. But I think it's better overall for the conference. I think it's better overall for the game in general. And it's definitely better for the people at the College Football Playoff Selection Committee who can now say, okay, this is how they did in their conference. It's a little easier to weigh that. My only beef with that is that Ohio State, which should be Ohio State, the Big Ten isn't requiring that extra P4 game. The others are. And I think that's something that Petiti needs to put into play. Otherwise, him crying for the automatic bids and crying for the 9-game conference schedules, which again I agree with, it's pretty hollow.
Yeah. Scott, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Scott Hamilton PC. I like your digs. I mean, I
thank
got to
you.
be honest. Did you put up that brickish type wall there?
That was all Gerb and Tim Ham and Gerb's nephew. They put this whole thing together in a couple of days, man. It is awesome.
Really?
We got 3 rooms out here. It is awesome. It's a really cool setup. We got to have you out here.
You didn't have. I'm being dead serious. That
Yeah.
you did not have a contractor come in there and do
No.
that modeling job. Spin your little camera around there. Show some
right,
people what you got.
Let's see.
And for those who are just listening, it's like this faux brick inside this
I'll go back
commercial
here, go on the
space.
other
Oh,
way
look at
here.
that! You got pictures.
Ohio
Up.
State picture up. We got a couple of TVs here.
Got
And
big
just so people
monitors.
know, I've known Scott Hamilton for more than 20 years. I promise you,
More than 25.
I promise you, the PC does not stand for politically correct. It's for the Post and Courier. So make sure everyone's aware of that. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, it's not PC. There wasn't much PC when I was hitting bombs on the softball field or dominating on the flag football.
That is
we
absolutely
had flags, didn't we? We had actual flags.
I think we played. I think we played tackle or tag. I don't remember flags out there. I don't remember playing with flags. Maybe
dominating. Me and Bucky.
Yes, you and Bucky definitely dominated. Scott, thanks for the time, buddy. We'll talk again soon. All right, that was Scott Hamilton joining us there from the Post and Courier down there in the Carolinas. We'll talk to him again soon. He's got his finger on the pulse of college football and college basketball down there, so make sure we have him on again. Other news now, I want to talk about the NFL, and they came out with their list of the final 12 coaches that are up for Hall of Fame induction in the 2026 class, again, the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And Bill Belichick's one of the people on that list. So they've got 12 people on that list, and what they do then is they'll do a couple of votes. They'll get it down to one person and see if that person gets in. Tom Coughlin, Mike Shanahan, George Seifert are also in there. Mike Holmgren is in there as well. So is Bill Arnsparger, Alex Gibbs, Dan Reeves, Buddy Parker, Chuck Knox, Clark Shaughnessy, and Marty Schottenheimer. So they're going to get it down to 9 semifinalists next month and then down to 1 finalist. Holmgren was a finalist last year, by the way, but then did not get inducted. He came up 1 vote short. So there's no guarantee one will get in. But out of this 12, 1 could get in. Got to believe Belichick's a shoo-in for this, based on the fact he's won 6 Super Bowls in his career, and also had a decent coaching career. Other than that, just I know he wasn't great in Cleveland, but as a coordinator, winning Super Bowls with the Giants under Bill Parcells. But among that other group, though, I mean, I think Coughlin probably gets in. Shanahan maybe. Dan Reeves, I think, would. Schottenheimer could get in also, but it's Chuck Knox, Ground Chuck, certainly had a great run too. But we'll see what they do with that. But yeah, Belichick, though, is going to be eligible now for voting, I guess, as a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. And that's amazing based on his career, but it's also interesting to see how far he's fallen in North Carolina since he took over the college ranks. And, there was always that discussion of, did Belichick make make Brady, or did Brady make Belichick? And the fact that Brady went on and won another Super Bowl with Tampa and Belichick struggled, and Belichick's doing this now, makes me wonder how much of it was Brady and how much was Belichick. Other news in the AFC East, Justin Fields got hit pretty hard, left the game, came back for the Jets, and then ended up getting benched after that. And the owner comes out. Look, Tyrod Taylor, by the way, came in relief, but the owner came out and gave complete vote of confidence to Aaron Glenn, the head coach, but also then kind of slammed on to Woody Johnson, slammed Justin Fields. He said, the offense is just not clicking. You can't run the ball if you can't pass the ball. That's football 101. Justin Fields has been dealt a tough hand with a lot of the things in his career so far. Coaching and coordinator changes in Chicago. He goes to Pittsburgh. I thought he was in good shape last year in Pittsburgh, and then they yanked the rug out from underneath him and let Russell Wilson start. I would have liked to see Fields get more time there as a starting quarterback, nonetheless. But so Fields, though, we might be at a point now where he's going to have to be a backup. A career backup, potentially. I don't know. I don't know how many times, the Bears, he goes to Steelers, ends up being a backup eventually there. The Jets, he'll probably be back up here because it looks like Tyrod Taylor will probably start. Woody Johnson wants him to start. And I'm telling you, Justin Fields is a damn good quarterback. But sometimes guys get their confidence shaken, get in bad situations, which is why whenever you look at drafts and look at where quarterbacks go, you have to pay very close attention to the situation they're going into, because it makes all the difference in the world. Look back at the famous 1983 draft. when you had Elway go number 1 to the Colts. He got traded to the Broncos. It would have been great for him. But you also had like Todd Blackledge go to the Chiefs. You had Tony Eason going to Illinois. You had Ken O'Brien to the Jets. Who am I missing? I know I'm missing Dan Marino. Jim Kelly to the Bills, who ended up not playing there right away because of the USFL. And then Marino to the Dolphins. Marino was the last quarterback taken out of that class of 6. And Marino went into the best situation. A stable organization. They were picking late in the first round. They already had talent. You had Don Shula there. I remember Dr. Z, Paul Zimmerman, ripped the pick for Miami, making the pick for him, saying that Shula was too old to teach him anything. And Marino had a fantastic career. I know, no Super Bowls. Nonetheless, though, a pretty damn good career. So when you look at these guys and where they get drafted, a lot of it really is the situation they go into. And you got to pay close attention to that. We've seen guys like David Carr, back when the Texans took him number 1 overall. Awful situation. And got sacked so many times and ended up being injured most time and a bust. Joey Harrington to the Lions also did not work out. Tim Couch to the Browns. Got Jamarcus Russell to the Raiders. All these different guys, either Ryan Leaf, had bad situations that they went into or weren't ready to be a leader of a team based on how high they were picked. Achilles Smith, Cincinnati. Like, we can go through this whole list of, there's all kinds of people that got picked and then didn't pan out. And so when you're looking at just because you've got the first pick in the draft to take quarterback doesn't mean he's going to be Peyton Manning. And if you have the second pick, doesn't mean he's going to be Ryan Leaf. If you have the pick in the 6th or 7th round, doesn't mean he's going to be Tom Brady or Brock Purdy. It's just all about the situation. And that's why I love watching the NFL. I love watching the situation these guys go into. By the way, Minnesota Vikings also, they are going to have Carson Wentz start against the Chargers. They're saying J.J. McCarthy is still not completely healed. I wonder with the Vikings, though, you look at this. They had Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones both on their roster last year and ended up getting rid of both of them and rolling instead with J.J. McCarthy, which I thought was a mistake at the time. I'm not convinced that he is going to be a solid NFL quarterback. Keep in mind right now, the Colts are 6-1. Under Daniel Jones, and the Seahawks are 5-2 under Sam Darnold. That's 11-3, not too shabby. And the Vikings, meanwhile, they are 3-3, and J.J. McCarthy is still out. Hey, folks, that's it for this edition of the Jeff Thitoff Show. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Tito, Jeff Thitoff. Follow me on Twitter @FitHappens. Also, go to the FantasySports.com website. Check that out as well. Great stuff there all the time. We'll do another one coming up here soon with Jimmy Bell. I have my partner in crime back with me again. Thanks so much, folks. Have a great night.